Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Uh, in this video, I'm going to discuss about MB-800 exam, which is related to Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central Functional Consultant exam for functional consultant. Um I have created a series of videos, a number of videos for MB-800 exams, and today we are going to discuss about the configuration setups. So let's start. So this is setup business central part 2. When I'm saying part 2, there is already a video which is related to setting up a new company, and that's why this one I'm calling it part 2. And in this exam, setup business central is having 20 to 25% weightage. Uh, the exam topics in setup business central are these: create and configure a new company. Under that, create a new company on premise version, in cloud version, and all these topics. So this section, create and configure a new company, is already covered in one of the video, and the video title is create and configure a new company in business central, part of excuse me, how to pass MB-800 exam. And here is the link of the uh, YouTube video. So in today's video, not going to cover this. Next is man the other topics in this setup business central is manage security, create and manage user profile, create a new user, set up a new user and user group, create and assign permission sets and permissions. We will see how security filters are applied, and then there is setup core F functionality, setup company information. In the company information page, we will define our company name, communication address, text registration number, etc. Set up printers for on-premise and cloud-based installation. Set up report selection. Set up and use job queues. Set up emails. Set up number series. And we'll continue with that. And next topic is set up dimensions. Dimensions is a very core component of Business Central, a very main functionality. Dimensions are used for analysis purpose, analysis of data, based upon your core analysis area or parameters based upon which you do analysis. These could be departments, employees, or vehicle number, or whatever the parameter that you want to use. So, and the system offers 8 dimensions. Out of those, 2 are called global dimensions. We will see how dimensions are set up in Generalizer setup and how to use those. Then we will see default dimensions and all. Uh, then there is next section is related to approvals. Manage approvals by using workflows. So in this video, I think time will not permit. If the time permits, then only I'll go into workflow. Otherwise, workflow will be covered in some other video. So for seeing this table of contents, or the content core content of the exam, you can refer to this link where it is showing setup business central 20 to 25%, and these are the topics. Okay, manage security. So we will start with manage security. Here we will see how to add a new user, how to make that a part of a user group, and how to assign security roles, permissions, and all that. So let's here I'm logged in into Business Central SaaS version, software as a service, cloud version. So from Business Central there is admin. We can go to admin. In the admin, here it is showing user management. We can add user from here, or we see here user groups billing setup. So active users, these are the active users which are already installed configured in my system. So add a new user. We can use template also, but I'll use the basics system. So let's say display name, username, and at the rate, this is automatically comes from the based upon your system. So for example, admin, now it is CRMBS. Automatically create a password, require this user to change their password when they sign in, send password in email upon completion. So these are the options which we can select. Email the new password to following recipient. So the password will be sent to the admin. Location, licenses. Here I'll assign Dynamics 365 Business Central to this user. Uh, Next, you can choose what role you would like to assign to this user. No admin center. So, on. I'll choose default profile info. One can mention job title, department, office, contact number, fax number, mobile number, address, and all these information. Assigned settings. So display name and user, password type auto generated, send to this product license, finish adding. It is taking some time. So says agreement added to active users. Okay, let me open up and was a badge and I have received an email being the sending to this. So this information is sent to model. User has been created. Password also I have received here, temporary password. So user will be asked to change the password once he or she logs in. So now I'm going to log in using this user, the newly created user. Right now it is saying administrator. So I'll sign out from here. It is I don't know whether it was copied successfully or not, but so once the new user logs in, system asks for changing the password. Now the new user is logging in with the new the password is changed, and now the user is logged in into. So welcome to this getting started. I'll close it, then I'll go to sandbox environment, open sandbox environment. So now the newly created user is logged in into. Okay, so this was how to create a new user. Now if we want to add this new user to a group, so let's talk about that, let's discuss that. So let's see what are the other no, what are the groups currently in the system. Allow users to reset their own password based on active groups, production group email. So let's say we want to add the newly added group uh, members. Add members. No member was found. Okay, so these are the active groups currently. We can say deleted group if any. This page is empty, there is no deleted groups. Shared mailboxes. Production members. I don't know why it is not displaying the newly created. Let me go to users, active users. Roles, manager, contact information. So later on, if we need to reset password, we can reset password of this user from here. Block, sign in, delete user. These can be done from the admin page. Okay. Now next part is permissions, and if I go to now I are logged in as a admin. If I search by user, users. These are the two users currently. I'll have to add this user in Business Central now. So new, why? Let me refresh it. Now only available in online production version of the books. Okay. Uh, okay. Now we see that the new user is there, which we created earlier, and user permission sets. These are the permission sets assigned to this user. Dynamics 365 business, what do you call, Excel export, local troubleshooting. These are the permission sets. We can change using admin. We can change the permission sets of this user. For example, if you want to make him a super user will have all the permissions. The field user group. Okay. So just a second. User permission sets that I need to enter here. So for which company we can apply a filter, if we want to allow this user to access all the companies, then we need not apply this filter. Otherwise we will give, if it is limited to Kronos USA only, then we will give that. Permission scope system, do you want to rename? Yes. Effective permissions, we can see what are the effective permissions. So using permission, we permission sets, we give the permission for particular tables or objects. So permissions work based upon object type. So object type, um, table data. We have various objects in Business Central. Table data, then we have tables, pages, and others. So for example, in super, I think everything is included. And then we have permissions like read, insert, modify, delete, execute. RIMDE, read, insert, and there also we have three options: yes, no, indirect. So indirect is if through means it will not be from user interface, rather it will be from objects or codes if at the object level permissions are given that way. Okay, and define permissions specify if the object is included in user. Execute permissions. So for example, this D360 various permission sets are already created part of standard business central, but if required we can also create permission sets. So D365 basic, for example, this is having permission, these permissions, table data, then table 0. When we say object id 0 means all the tables, all the reports, all the coordinates, all xml ports, all pages, all queries, system, this one. So these are the permission sets, these are the objects, sorry, not permission sets. So now what we have done is to the newly added user we have given super role, which means it will have all the permissions, it will have permission as good as the admin. And the user himself who is having limited permission will not be able to change his own permission sets. So set up new user and user groups, create and assign permission sets, apply security filters. We can apply security filters also. User, let's revisit user, newly created user. Security filter, modify. Permissions of type system and extension cannot be changed. Only permission set of type. Okay, user defined permission sets can be changed. But we can apply filter, for example, if one should be able to see uh, customers which are created by him, we can apply a filter on salesperson code, etc. Apply security filter, create and manage user profile, perform user specific setup. So when it comes to user specific setup, so we have user setup. in the user setup, what we can do is newly created user, allow posting date from this date to that date. For example, generally at the beginning of the month, we define that these users will be able to post within this month. Salesperson code of this user, salesperson responsibility center filter, if that can also be defined. Then email ID of this person, phone number. So now allow posting date from and to we have at the GL setup level also. General ledger setup. So let me show you that. General ledger setup. Allow posting from, allow posting to. So if at the GL setup level it is defined, and if you want to give different permission set to a particular user ID, different range, allow posting date from range to date to a user ID, then it will be applicable to that user. So one level is at the GL setup level, second is at the user level. So if nothing is defined at the user setup level, then it will take from GL setup, and if both are there, then user setup allow posting date from to date range will have precedence. We saw how to create new user groups, existing user groups. We saw that we can set up permission groups at the user group level also. Which objects can a user access with? So permission sets have object type, then permission type, then permission options. Object type are like table data, table, report, coordinate. Permission type are read, insert, modify, delete, execute, and permission options are blank, yes, and indirect. To user for all contents of the select. So let's create a permission sets. So let's create a new permission set. Test row. So here we have user defined because we are creating. These are not created by system originally. So user extension name, permissions. What are the permissions in this role? Table data 0, yes, yes, yes. Secure. So let's say we want to give few customer table. Then read object type. These are the options: table, report, coordinate, XML port, menu shoot, page, query, system. Object ID, then next customer object name will come the moment you select object ID. Then there are various permissions: read, as I said earlier, read, insert, modify, delete, and execute. So we can select whether it will be we want to give read permission or not. If it is blank, it means no. Okay, so for example, we might like user to read it but not delete. Read, insert, and modify is okay, but if you don't want to give him the delete rights. Execute, security filter. So for example, salesperson code should be a field here. Salesperson code, and JR. Okay, let me see what are the various values in salesperson code. So for example, I assume JR is a salesperson. So if we want him to see only the records where salesperson code is JR, so that's what we can define. Now, so this is the security filter which is applied. We might want that this person should be able to, and okay, customer, maybe sales order, sales header, sales line, then table 0. Let's, so in table, notice that read, insert, modify are not relevant. We cannot choose this one. Here applicable is only execute, whereas execute is not applicable in table data. So table data and table are two different objects. System is treating those as two different objects. Then we can define what pages can the user can see. The report coordinate action report page 42, for example, and its associated subpage and all that. So this is how a new permission set can be created, security filter can be applied. Okay. So now when we created this one permission set, let's go and add it to the newly created user also. Although newly created user we have added super, and once super is given, then we don't need any other permission set. So what we can do is we can remove super from here, and we can assign the newly created, that was test something. Test permission set role. Okay. So copy a permission set, record permissions, allow, disallow permission, manage permission set, add, read permission to related table, and include, import permissions. Apply security filters that we have seen. Record level security, that only these records. For example, only read customers with salesperson code JR. So in that case, this user will be able to access only the customer for which salesperson code is JR. Create and manage user profiles. So user, okay. So once the user is logged in my settings, one will have a role, different role assigned to person. So for example, admin is having role business manager. So there are various roles, and based upon role center is configured. So the user interface GUI which the user sees is determined by the role assigned to that person. Process update user definition or restore default user group, refresh user groups. User groups. Permission set, user settings, user setup. A role assigned to this user is all three are business users, business managers, sorry. Edit. So for example, if I want to make him as a sales and relationship manager, so this is the role assigned. We can assign role from here. Clear personalized pages. The user can do personalization. So do we want to clear personalized pages or not? So if I do, this will delete all personalized changes made by this user. I'll show you how the user can do personalization, and if any personalization is done, that will be deleted. So for now, I'm saying no. Personalized pages. Are there any personalized pages? It is not saying no. Currently, there is no personalized customized pages. So let's log in with the user. So if you see, its user interface is different that what was there in the business manager. Now let's go and check my settings. In my settings, it is sales and relationship manager. The user interface, the role center which is assigned is sales and receivable setup, and based upon that only, this user interface or role center, role tailored client is uh, provided to the user. Now, if we were talking about personalized, so let's say we opened customers. These are the customers. I'm in the customer card page. If I want to make some personalized, these are user specific changes. Hold on. Let me go again. Personalize more field So search name, name to, for example, name to is not currently displayed, and I want to add name to somewhere here. So name to is added. Search name also is not already there, so I have added these two fields. I have added. This is the personalization done. It will be visible to this user only. It will not be visible to others. So okay, and if I say done, it will be saved as. So name to and search name are added now. This is the personalization. This is specific to this current user only. Now let's see, can this user uh, design is not available. Design is available to admin only. In the case of admin, some design changes can also be done. So when we were talking about clearing personalization, let me see if this will work or it has logged out. So edit. So uh, personalization pages. Now I'm in the user card and I want to see what are the personalization done by this user. So here it lists in page 21 customer card, some personalization is done by the user. So whether in case we want to delete it, if we delete it from the admin, these personalizations, whatever is done by the user, clear personalized page, I think we cleared that and now there is no personalization. And if we go and refresh it or re-login, so name to and search name which we added, which were added by this user should not be visible now. So all the personalization are getting cleared. So now name to and search name are not visible because personalization has been cleared by the admin. So that was personalization can be disabled also. More options related, here options company. Okay, fine. Here the role is defined. Perform user specific setup. That we have done. We went into user setup and defined the allow posting date from and to responsibility center, specify email and phone number, set up core app functionality. So coming to set up core app functionality. So we will start with company info, set up printer, set up report, set up job, set up and use job queues, set up email, set up number switch. So let's search for company information. Company information is the page where your business related information is stored. The logo of the company, company name, address, zip code, postal code. So show more. Industrial classification, there might be some classification, EORI number, federal ID number. Then in communication, email ID, phone number, fax number, home page, IC partner code, payments, bank, your bank related information, shipping, ship to address, tax related information, tax area code, tax exemption number, company badge, and then user experience. Okay, company logo. If required, we can change company logo using this, clicking on this. So once the company information is set up, email account setup. So right now I've done the setup. If required, we can do a new one. So admin, and this is the default email ID. So if it is not already done, in that case one can go to new, add email account, next choose one of these, Microsoft 365 current user or SMTP. So maybe we can use this one, account name, whatever. Okay, so this is how the email setup can be done. I'm clicking back because it is already done at my end. Then comes the printer selection, printer management. In the printer management, once the email is set up, one can configure the printer selection, edit printer settings, set email print, add an email printer. So printer ID, for example, I gave email printer, then send print jobs to printer's email address, define that email address. In this particular case, what I've done is I've configured email printer using, this is already done, and this is the email ID which I've defined for printer email address, the admin's email ID. So whenever this printer is used, email is sent to this email ID. We will see that. So let's go and then second, the next one is printer selection. So for different reports, we can define different printers. For example, for different users also. This particular user, for example, some report, text register, and printer name. Right now, I have only the option of email printer. If there are multiple printers set up, so we can select for which user for which report, which printer to be used. So it is based upon user ID and report ID. So for example, if I go to a sales order and a report, picking list by order. So printer by default is handled by browser. If it is not defined there, then handled by browser. Otherwise, it will give me all the options. Email printer. Okay. So if I select email printer and print it, let me log in into email. Your sign in timeout. Let me just Outlook mode administrator. Okay, so user has been created. These are email which received, printed copy. Your message was not delivered because the recipient's email provider rejected it. Let's try again. So if I choose handled by browser, looks like there is some connectivity issue. I'm changing my network, so when we selected handled by browser, it shows us the report, and we can choose save as PDF, OneNote, or I think it is determined by the local printers installed, or save as PDF. PDF report. In the printer selection, if we define report as 0, printer selection, let me create a grim report selection as 0, and then email printer, and similarly for admin also 0. And so when we select 0, for it will be applicable for all the reports, so all the reports by default will go to this printer. So once this change is done, if I click on some report, sales reservation available, so notice that printer by default is coming as email printer here, though we can change it, choose the other one. By default is from that. So now email printer is selected. I say print, and there was a budge, and we see there is an email which is received. So it is saying delivery failed. Delivery has failed to these recipients. Your message was not delivered because the recipient's email provider rejected it. Okay. Set up company information, that we have seen. Company information part, general communication, payment, shipping, administration, include on reports, fiscal documents. Uh, So this information will be included in the reports, company information, whatever you set up. If you change this, it will reflect in your reports also. So then we saw email account setup, how to set up email account, set up printers, print management, email printer, printer selection, which printer prints which report, link user and reports, that we have seen. Now, because Business Central is a cloud service, it cannot reach local printers connected to user's machine. However, it can connect to cloud-enabled printers. If there are any cloud-enabled printers installed on the user's machine, so those can be selected. In the generic version of Business Central, a cloud printer named email printer is installed as an extension and is ready to use after initial setup. If the initial setup is done, then email printer is installed and ready to use. If a cloud printer is not installed and set up, or if an installed printer fails, then printing will default to the printing options for the browser that we saw. This is indicated by this value in the printer field on the report request page, none handled by browser. Let's see it again. None handled by the browser. So if we are in this one, let's say sales order, print send we could do from there or from here. So default is email printer because I defined zero email printer handled by browser, second option. Setup reports, setup reports. So report layout selection. Next is report layout selection. We can select built-in layout, RDLC, or Word or custom layout depending upon what is available. And then report selection. Select report ID for document. So let's see that part. Report selection. Report layout selection. So for different reports, report ID 2, which is general test, select layout. We can edit it. And Word custom layout out of these three. So let's say Word layout. Report has no built-in Word layout, is not already defined, so we can choose only from the which is available for selection. Okay, so for different reports, different layouts, for example text register, or one can select the custom layout if it is already built in or defined. This was report layout selection, which layout to use. Then next comes the report selection. A report selection is like for sales, for quote, for quotation, sales quote, which report to use. For example, here it is defined as sequence is 1304 sales quote. In case the report modifications are done 1304, this report ID is saved as and modified, and you want to use a different report for printing of sales quote, then you can define here. You can change this ID. If you have created a report in 50,000 series, so you define that, and in report selection, that report will be used in sales code. Similarly, blanket order, invoice, work order. This is for sales. Similarly, we have for purchase also. So let me purchase. For purchase code 10123 is defined currently. For order, it is 1322. So these are the report defined in report selection. So in case we want to use some other compatible report which is built for purchase order or purchase code, we can define and change it here. So that was on the report selection, report layout selection, and report selection for purchase and sales. Job queues we will skip for now. Setup email we have covered. Setup email. Send documents and report by email. We have seen SMTP setup, assisted setup, setup number series. So number series for various documents are defined, for example, in purchase and payable setup. For vendor, number series for vendors and others, we have defined number series. Number series, select number series, vendor. In that, this is number series list, and then okay, let's go to number series. Search for number series. So here is the one for vendor, and then we have number series lines. These are the lines. One can define that from this date this number series to be used. For example, at the beginning of the fiscal year, new financial year, we can define that okay, from this date this number series will be used. For example, here start date is not mentioned, so it will be applicable for all the dates. For example, we say 01/01/2021 v 021 slash starting number is this one, ending number is last date used, last number used. These will be uh, updated by system. Warning number, for example, when the number is ending, about to end, and maybe 99 number before, if you want to give a warning, so that can be set up. Increment by number, generally it should be 1, but we can set up whether we want to increment number by uh, 10 or so. For example, in the previous number series, which is defined over here, it is set up as 10. So we 00010, then 20, 30, 40, 50, that's how the numbers will be generated. So whether it is open or closed, if the year has ended and we don't okay, if this number, last number used, is equal to ending number, so if the number have ended, so open will get closed. Okay. And yeah, for example, for next year 01/01 2022, we can define function f8 22. Okay. Relationship, we can define the relationship between these. So now the number is coming from the number series which I just now defined. Okay. If I, So number series are applicable for journals, master data, customer, vendor, banks. I think banks. I'm not sure on the bank part, but for general documents or a sales order document, when we create the sales order, sales orders, new. So the number, the moment you select the customer name, sales order, this order number 101005 is not manually entered. This is coming from a number series, and that's setup is done in sales and receivable setup. Similarly for purchase and payable setup. So let's revisit sales and receivable setup and see what is set up for sales order number. In the number series, uh, we have order numbers, SORD. Agrim. Okay, in SORD we can see that last number, ending number is this, last number is just now we use this, and the last date used. Okay, master creation relationship between numbers is setup dimension. As I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this video, that dimension are used for analysis purpose, and a very important concept of business central. So dimensions are defined in Generalizer setup. Let's go to Generalizer setup, used for analysis, data analysis. Generalizer setup. In GL setup, first tab is general, then dimensions. If I click on show more, then we have 8 dimensions. First two are known as global dimension, department and customer group. Here it is defined. Shortcut dimension 3 up to shortcut dimension 8. I can select, for example, other dimensions: salesperson, purchaser, then maybe next dimension as sales campaign. Okay, in case we need to change later on global dimensions, so that can be done using change global dimensions. Right now it is department and customer group, and if I want to make it something business group, let's say, and then purchaser. Okay, the validation is used in general window as a shortcut dimension, so we cannot use it. So let's say we want to modify only one, not purchaser, rather customer. Okay, so business group. From department we are changing to custom business group. Okay, so prepare set parallel processing, saved. Okay, it is not updated. Department and customer group is still there. Change global dimension. Instead of department I want to use, let's say, area. Is it okay, account manager for manage log entries, new line, sequential start. So that's how from this you can change the global dimensions. Okay, uh, set up global shortcut dimension, set up default dimension. We will see how to set up default dimensions. For example, when we are in GL account, chart of accounts, grim. chart of accounts. I'm in this chart of account, and dimension. Here I can define the default dimensions. For example, department dimension, I can assign some value posting. There are three options like code mandatory. It will not allow posting into this account if the code is not mentioned. Same code, it should be same code, no code. So these are the various options for default dimension. And there we can also define these are the values allowed value filter. So code mandatory. In the in another account, what I can say is maybe dimensions, department, sales, same code. Use as many dimensions as needed. Setup dimension values. We can define dimension and before setting up in general as a setup, we can define various dimensions. For example, here these are listed. We can create more, also some more employee, or maybe vehicle ID, car. So then employee dimension values, list of your employees, uh, E001, E002, or for example, we created a car. So it could be car registration number or car number internally if you are using some number, or the car's registration number itself. Default dimension that we have seen. So I think that's all for this video. Uh, Stay tuned for more videos. I'll cover this MB-800 exam, all the topics related to MB-800 exam. Thanks for watching. And in case you liked it, and if you want yourself to be updated as and when I upload new videos, you may consider liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thanks again.